This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Mother's Day is almost here, and you can get her the most beautiful time-tested gift around. A watch she can wear every day from Movement. Whether mom's into classic dress watches, rare and refined ceramics, or tried and true bestsellers, Movement has something she'll love. And right now you can save big on the best Mother's Day gift ever with up to 50% off site-wide during Movement's Mother's Day sale at mvmt.com. Again, that's up to 50% off at mvmt.com.
We made this.
Welcome everyone to the Xcast. The truth is in here. I'm your host, Tony Black, and welcome back to I Want to Believe Minute, where we unpick the second X-Files movie 1 minute at a time. Today, helping me to explore minute 3, running from approximately 2 minutes, as we see Father Joe on the ice, through to 2 minutes 59 seconds as Monica grabs a weapon, are the whole Xcast team. Carl Sweeney, Sarah Blair, and Kurt North. Welcome back, guys.
Hello, Tony.
Hi, Tony. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Kurt.
See, that didn't sound like Billy Connolly.
No.
It just sounded like a crazy Scottishman, basically.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
I thought it wasn't going to be good.
You did.
I was thinking it
You
sounded
did. Well-
a bit like Gollum or something, you know. Yeah, can't
Well,
do
at the risk of Kurt doing more terrible Billy Connolly impressions, I think it's time we ask you about your I Want to Believe history, Kurt. It's your turn. So tell us what you think about the movie, what your rating out of 10, and what your experience of it for the first time was.
Well, Tony, I think it was an 8. It was an 8. No, I went to see it, similar to Sarah, really, first thing in the morning on release day, around 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. There was about 5 or 6 people there. I enjoyed it. I was surprised, actually, Sarah, at your score last week, yesterday even, 7.5, really, because I thought you might be a bit lower than that, and I thought I was going to be the one in between. But I probably a one above. But I really like the film. I do think, however, like Carl, that it's grown on me more as the years have gone on. I feel that mood is the big thing for me. Every single time the snow falls, I instantly think of Mulder. Wherever I am, I always think of this film for some reason. The vistas, like you say, the bill roll photography. I think that is the big pulling point for me. Just how beautiful this looks. The entire film looks great, and even to the point, I think they spent quite a bit of money on CGI snow at one point and all that kind of thing, which I know we'll get into as we go on. I love the end scene, which I know we'll talk about at the end, but the Home Again soundtrack is one of my favorite pieces of music of the X-Files that Mark Snow's ever done. I just think it's an amazing piece of music, and similar to Carl, I think that the whole premise of the story kind of falls behind in what it should do. It doesn't really do. I know it's trying to do this Frankenstein kind of thing, and it's just not really, doesn't really live long in the memory. And that's the thing I struggled with. Although the themes and the feeling and the melancholy that you sometimes get in it, which is something that I always attach myself to, I thought was really strong. And I think as time's gone on, I think I actually enjoy it more. So when I first watched it, I would have said maybe a 6.5, 7 out of 10. And now I wouldn't be that far up. I think I'd be maybe a 7, 7.5 out of 10. I think it's a really good movie. There's a lot more depth to it than I originally thought. Even watching it 2 days ago, rewatched it again 2 days ago, and I was picking up things that I don't think I've picked up before. I know that during my discussions on Millennium that it's come up a couple of times in relation to that and how it's a bit more of a Millennium story in some ways. And as I say, the melancholy aspect or some of the darkness, stuff like that is something that really is akin for me. So fascinating. I watched it 3 times. I watched it that morning, I had I definitely remember buying 2 tickets for the same day. So I think I went at like 11 and then went back at 4, watched the 2, and then I think I watched it one more time before then getting the DVD. And I know I've mentioned it off air, but the director's cut, there's a couple of scenes in there, remembering seeing Mulder looking down over the cliff and things like that, which are memorable to me as well. And obviously this isn't in this version because we're doing the theatrical version, but that's those things are quite memorable to me.
Kurt, did you have any mates you went with for these? Was there anyone in at that point of your life that you were sharing your love of the X-Files with?
No, I was just renowned as the Mulder and Scully guy, basically. My friends were always like making like little jibes at me saying, "Hey, Mulder," and doing all that kind of thing, and spelling it Moulder to really get my nerves and things. Yeah.
You see, if they'd known the show, they would have known you much more resemble Assistant Director Skinner, wouldn't they? So.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, my friends did watch it. My best friend, he kind of fell by the wayside as the years got on. You know, when he got to like kind of like season 5, he stopped kind of watching it. And me other friend, he's always the one kind of like just jibing me about it. But yeah, I went on my own. Watched it. So yeah, similar story to Sarah, really. So
all right, nice one, good. Yeah, I think we're all along similar lines, really. So I'll give you some details about my experience in the next episode. But cheers for that, Kurt. That was great. So obviously we start this minute with a shot of Billy Connolly as Father Joe, and we've done some fun impressions so far. And, it was mentioned in a previous episode, but what do we think about his casting then with this? Because obviously he's one of those actors that obviously to Brits he's immediately going to be recognisable. What about American, Sarah? I mean, how at this point, how well known was Billy? Was he well known enough for you to see him and go, oh, no way, that's Billy Connolly?
Yes. Yeah, I knew who he was, and I was excited to see him. And excited to have him be part of this film. So, yeah, he's well recognized, I think.
Yeah, because he'd done films, hadn't he? He'd done like Mrs. Brown with Judi Dench, I think, which was quite popular. But I don't. What's he most famous for in America? Is it his comedy? Is it his stuff like that? Do you think?
Probably.
Yeah.
Honestly, like
I know you're not an expert.
Yeah, I'm not a Billy Connolly expert. I think the one place that I recognized him was the Series of Unfortunate Events film that he was in with Jim Carrey, and I was a big fan of the books, and so I watched that film and I recognized him, and he's kind of one of those guys where I saw him. It's like, oh yeah, I know him. He's been in things I've seen, but I can't exactly name it off the top of my head, so I was familiar with him and liked him, but yeah.
Carl, Kurt, what about you guys? I mean, seeing him on there, were you surprised? Did it? What was your feeling about
well, I definitely knew who he was. I suppose I more associated him with his comedy because of like he would pop up on talk shows like Parkinson or something, and he would always be very funny when he appeared on those kind of shows. But I think in terms of what you're saying, Tony, he was established by this point as someone who could do dramatic acting too. Mrs. Brown, I think, is a great example. But also he'd been in films like The Last Samurai. He had done some straight acting, certainly a lot by this point, and could move between comedy and drama. I like his performance in the film quite a bit, to be fair. I would say that there's one scene where a character mentions some other like sort of psychic-type characters from the X-Files, and I think the characters that get a mention are Luther Lee Boggs, Clyde Bruckman, and Gerald Schnauz. So to me, the actors who played those guys are more iconic for their X-Files appearances than Billy Connolly is, but I do think Connolly is quite good, to be fair. I just don't think he makes the same kind of impression as like Brad Dourif did in Beyond the Sea and so on and so forth. But
I think that's by design. I think that's by design, though, isn't it? Because I think for me, I hadn't seen him do any straight acting, and he's very understated. And I think that the way that he plays him is pitch perfect. I do really appreciate his soft demeanor and things like that, especially given the material he has to work with. And to have that, I mean, I know I've been joking about Italy and having this kind of really soft Scottish accent, this Glaswegian accent, which obviously he toned down because he's a very emotive person in general. But to see him play understated and to see just how he came about to the character, I thought was a really, really strong performance. And I think he was perfectly cast for this personally.
Well, it sounds like they sought him out. Really, you know, they really wanted him to. Chris Carter really wanted him to play the role, and I like him in the film, but I've always found it slightly strange casting in some ways. You know, it's not that he can't do dramatic stuff; it's just it's a bit eccentric in terms of casting, and that's why it's quite interesting. Actually, you know, it's because he would never be on a list of names if you describe the character of Father Joe. Of actors, I think you go, oh, that's perfect for Billy Connolly. It's just you just wouldn't do it, would you? You know, it's so odd, but I like the oddness of it, you know, and he does fit it very well. He visually and in terms of performance does a good job, really. But it is one of those roles that I will perpetually think is really, really strange. But that's it's not to say it's not a good choice. It's just so odd. But yeah, it was interesting to see him. Obviously, here he's doing he's helping to amp up what's going on in the scene, where he's saying it's here. So we're getting the sense of something under that ice that is important as to why these people are here.
Did anyone else find his running a little bit odd? I just feel like his running is a little bit. I don't know if comedic is the right word, but
it's a little Teletubby, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit odd. You're probably right, Tony. There probably is a different way to cast that part, isn't there? You know, I don't know who you would put in, but it would have a very different kind of feel with somebody like Anthony Hopkins in the role. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Exactly. I don't know who exactly you would put in. I mean, you could put in someone like Brad Dourif, couldn't you? You know, in theory, you know, because he. But obviously they've done that. But you know that kind of character actor. But yeah. Anyway, I'm not taking it away from him. But no, it builds things up quite well with the, you know, we're continuing really with much of the same from the previous minute. We're getting the intercut in. We get that, I mentioned it at the very beginning, but that shadow that passes across with Monica when she goes into her house at the back of the car, which I think is quite an effective visual there, because it does make you go, ooh, what's going on there?
It's interesting that they kind of use that moniker like later on in Don't Give Up in My Struggle. The fact it's on the back of a car. You know, and the whole concept of this film is don't give up, and then they kind of replay that. It's obviously a scene or an image that they quite like.
Yeah.
When you said Monica, then I really thought you meant the character. I had to stop and go, what? Hang on.
Am I saying the right word? I often get
No, you are. But it just because her name's Monica, just confused me.
In terms of setting up stuff for later on, before that shadow moment, we see Monica's medical bracelet, don't we? Which is quite easy to miss. It's a bit of a blink and you'll miss it thing, but that does come into play later in the movie, doesn't it? So
good spot.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite creepy. She's getting the sense something's not right. You know, as soon as she gets out of the car, there's some. You know, she looks at the implements on the wall. There's a footprint in the snow. You know, some good visual storytelling, I think, in this minute. On her side particularly.
Yeah, I mean, we see the rake, don't we? That's at the side of her, and the focus changes to emphasise that, and that's shortly before she grabs it in self-defence. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Also, some good visual storytelling with Amanda Peet's character, Dakota Whitney, because, you know, we cut to her, don't we? She seems to be like the only woman in that predominantly male team. You know, I think, again, she's played by someone who has a bit of a profile. You know, she's appeared in films like The Whole Nine Yards and Something's Gotta Give, so people might be going to the movie and recognising her. She seems to have a certain level of authority when she shouts out, give him room and all that stuff. So I think this minute tells us that this character is someone we need to pay attention to as well.
I would also just add on top of the rake scene, there's, like you say, the footprints, but there's also like the breath. You can just see the cold air breath that's just by the side of the door. I think that works quite well because it obviously indicates to her that someone is actually there. So it ramps up the fear there.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So it's playing with a lot of imagery here to try and escalate that tension and that suspense, you know, which I think is quite impressive. Like you say, Amanda Peet, quite well known. and we see Exhibit, don't we, as Drummy. I don't think we've got names for these guys yet, but and he's screaming, "Hold the line," which is a good, it's almost Tolkien. It's almost Gandalf-like,
It is very Toto. But...
What do we think about him? Again, like, odd casting, he's best known as a rapper, isn't he? I'm saying like I know. I'm not going to pretend I've ever listened to any Exhibit. I mean, have you guys listened to any Exhibit?
No.
Okay. Well, that's that. Can't talk about that then, can we?
I suppose, again, that there's a moment in this minute where they exchange glances, him and Whitney, so it's kind of coming across that they're somewhat familiar with one another. He has authority, it seems like she does, because he's barking orders as well. I don't think he makes much impression on me in this film overall, to be honest. I think she maybe does slightly more. I don't think either of them register as massively memorable X-Files characters. I don't know if anyone else thinks differently, but he's just kind of there for me, Exhibit, to be fair.
What do you think, Sarah, of these guys?
I mean, as far as X-Files characters go, not really. I mean, I think I was so familiar with Amanda Peet beforehand that, I'm probably relate to her more with other things than this. And then, yeah, I'm not that familiar with Exhibit. I think, wasn't he on Law and Order or one of those other shows? I can't remember.
Yeah, we're really well researched in this podcast.
Yeah.
I think,
done my homework
fair, I think,
for sure.
Yeah, we were well prepared. I think he does a good enough job. I don't think he's a bad actor. He just doesn't get a lot to work with, really. He's mainly an exposition guy for the whole film, to be honest. So he does. I think he's fine, really. I do think Amanda Peet's a good actor. She can. Again, Whitney doesn't get a ton of stuff. And in some later minutes I've recorded, I talk a little bit about some of the strange interactions she has with Mulder at points. But, she and Duchovny, I think, are pals. I think they were pals before this. So whether he was part of getting a cast, I don't know. But, I think she is a good actor. And she can bring something out of a character that there isn't a vast amount on the page. By the simple fact there isn't a lot of time to do anything with her. Like, had she been a character in the Revival series, then you would have been able to maybe get into that a little bit more. But that ain't going to happen. Spoilers. But we'll get to that. But yeah, I don't know. I think they're okay. They're not bad enough. They're okay, really, as part of this scene. Apparently, Chris Carter, all the FBI extras there, Chris Carter had them to warm up in the cold snow. He had them all sing the Canadian national anthem, which apparently they did very well. I don't know what the Canadian national anthem is. I know what the American one is. But does
it go, "Oh, Canada"? Is it that?
Yeah. So. That's the only part I know. Yeah.
Oh, Canada. I'll have to go and listen to this now.
Is it Our Home and Native Land? I don't know. Probably not.
The only song I know involving Canada is "Blame Canada" from South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, which probably isn't right.
See, we could have divided up this research. We could have had one of us is going to research Exhibit, one of us is going to research the Canadian national anthem. We could have covered all this, guys. Come on.
Yeah, Kurt could have done Billy Connolly. Yeah, it could have been. Yeah, do let us know what you think of the Canadian national anthem, guys. Especially if you're Canadian, I don't want to besmirch your national anthems. But you know what, right? As an aside to this, whenever I'm watching like a football match or whatever, so in like World Cups, or I think Carl knows what I'm going to say here. Whenever I watch these, I always think they're so boring, most of the national anthems in the world. Like, the British one is very old-fashioned. Yes, I get that. It's like empirical and whatnot, but it's at least got a memorable tune. So many national anthems in the world all say, well, maybe they all sound the same. Do you guys agree? Am I talking at my arse here? What do you think?
Well, I've always thought the British national anthem should be changed to the song Jerusalem, because I think that would be a great way to send our sportsmen and women out onto the field. A really rousing flourish.
Jerusalem! Yeah, that's true.
I think my favourite national anthem is probably La Marseillaise from France. I think...
I love how you've got a favourite.
Not my favourite country, but my favourite national anthem. I think their national anthem is really good. I think it's used very memorably in Casablanca, to great effect, that song.
Is that the one that's... that one? Yeah.
Yeah, roughly.
It's like... You've got to go up in intonation, Tony. You missed that note.
Yeah, okay.
I think the American national anthem is an interesting one because I feel like when they sing it at like sporting events and stuff, quite often it does get murdered by the singer.
It's a hard one. It's tough. It's tough. Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like it can be done
well. The American one, though. I do like the American one. I think it's good. And you can really belt that out, can't you? To be fair.
I'm usually at the bar saying, can I have a pint of lager during them? So I'm not paying much attention. I'm too busy trying to get the bar people's attention to say, can I have a pint, please?
Anyway, enough anthem chat. But I'm very interesting topic, anthems. But anyway, we're not here to talk about anthems. We're here to talk about the X-Files. The last thing I wanted to quickly mention was how going back to Billy Connolly. He had to walk quite aimlessly on that snow. Maybe this accounted for his run in the end because maybe he was just sick of it, right? Because he had to walk a lot, and Carter was just saying, "Just keep walking." So while they got the shots, he just kept. You can imagine him going, "I don't know where I'm going. Like, where am I going? I'm just walking on the snow." And he got very cold apparently in the end.
Very Edinburgh, as Tony there, isn't he?
So I've offended probably Canadians and Scots now. So and most of the rest of the world.
And Exhibit's fan base. Yeah.
Exhibits. Did you guys have anything else to add to this minute?
No, I don't think so. I think the main thing I did want to mention the medical bracelet because I don't think I'd consciously interpreted that before. I feel like I obviously had seen the medical bracelet, but it was only going back to rewatch the film for these minutes that I thought, oh yeah, that's where this is setting up the reference to the medical bracelets later. So I think we'll probably find a few things like that as we go through, that things that are there visually that kind of work almost on a subliminal level maybe or something. I don't know. That might be one of them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, good point. Okay, well, let's finish up this minute then, and we'll be back for minute 4, where we'll continue the journey on this block. So thanks for listening, everyone, and until next time, always remember, hold the line!